22 minutes before 8 o'clock it is our time, right here on Kapi Talk. Welcome to Business Focus. As always, you are free to bring in your questions on our WhatsApp platform, which is 0719 100404. We are live on our Facebook page, Kapi Talk 100.4 FM, Harare's Heartbeat. We have Kudzi, as always. Morning to you, Kudzi. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Tinashe. Good morning, Patsani, and good morning, everyone.
Great. Business Focus. Send in your questions on our WhatsApp platform, 0719 100404. You can also do that on our Facebook page, Kapi Talk 100.4 FM, Harare's Heartbeat. So, Kudzi, following the text, a fine-tuning, okay, that we had. Is it now smooth sailing in the world of business?
So thank you, Tinashe. I think your question refers to the fine-tuning of the tax measures that were announced by the Minister of Finance and Economic Development. And now you're asking to say, is it now smooth sailing in the world of business? I don't think so. I think we are yet to solve the elephant in the room is still there. Because one of the reasons why we saw customers moving away from formal businesses to the informal sector was the price differences. So you'd see your formal sector, the prices are out of this world, and then you go to the so-called tax shops and their prices are much, much lower. And you ask yourself to say, okay, why are people moving to the tax shops? And why are tax shops offering cheaper products than the formal sector? And you ask those in the formal sector, they'll tell you, no, we are forced to use the official exchange rate. So it brings distortions to our pricing. It makes our products expensive because I'm trying to cover myself on one side of the business. Because, for example, if I use the official exchange rate, a product that costs $1, I would be selling it at 6,400. But somebody is selling the same product using the parallel market rate of about roughly 12,000. So I'm losing out. So what do? I put up my US dollar prices so that when I sell my product in Zim dollars, I get exactly what the other guy is getting. So that has been the reason why customers moved from formal businesses to the informal sector, the so-called tax shops. So the issue of the exchange rate is still there. We still have a premium of not less than 80% between the official rate and the parallel market rate. It's still there. So consumers will continue to go to the tax shop even after the manufacturing sector has agreed to collect a 5% withholding tax on behalf of government. The tax shops still have an unfair advantage when you look at where the exchange rate is. So it's not yet smooth sailing. Yes, the business sector is now saying, okay, the government listened to us and they changed some of the measures that they had put in place. But we are back to square one where tax shops still have an unfair advantage over the formal businesses. So Ngomandio for now, it's not going to be smooth sailing.
So in other words, the smooth sailing is on paper, but practically there's not smooth sailing.
You could say it's on paper because the elephant, like I said, the elephant in the room. The main reason why we saw consumers preferring to go and buy from tax shops away from the formal retailers is still there, and that is the exchange rate. That's why if you see the submissions that were put by CZI, they were talking about the removal of the 10% trading margin, and they were saying it has to be removed. You must allow businesses, the formal businesses, to charge 20% below the parallel market rate. And someone would ask, why 20%? Because the Reserve Bank has said it, that they are comfortable with a premium of between 15 to 20%. So that's what the retailers are saying. Okay, allow us to trade within that 20% range between the official and the parallel market rate. So the elephant in the room is still there.
So Kudzi, obviously my next question will be, with all this that we have seen happening in the world of business, will Professor Mthuli Ncube be able to meet his budget proposals and projections? Now that there are so many fine-tunings that are going on, will he be able to meet up on his projections?
That's an important question, an interesting question, because when he made the projections, you say it's supposed to collect, I'm not sure the exact figure now, but I think it was like $55 trillion in Zim dollars terms. To say our budget is 55, this is what we are going to spend. He was also looking at what he was going to collect.
Through some of these measures,
your sugar tax, your and all these other measures. Now they've made adjustments. For example, the sugar tax, at first it was said 2% or 2 cents. per every gram of sugar. Now it's 0.001 cent. So already they have significantly reduced that tax. So the question is, are they going to collect? Because at first that 2 cents was going to give them $40,000 per ton. Now it's going to give them much less than that. So if they had budgeted for that 40,000, it means they're not going to get 40,000. They are going to get less than $2,000. So will he meet his budget projections? I would say, I think he is still be able to meet some of his objectives. If you look, for example, now the business community, the manufacturers are going to be collecting a 5% withholding tax from all those unregistered, for tax purposes, unregistered businesses that were just trading without paying any tax. They are now contributing 5%. And I know some of these tax shops, we call them tax shops, but some of them have gone beyond tax shops. They're actually wholesalers. They sell products in bulk. They sell huge volumes. One of my trucks are no pakwa downtown, my trucks are no pakwa every day. My huge trucks are offloader. So they are not your tax shop here to say 5 loaves of bread or 5 packets of masamba and stuff like that. These are
but Kudzi, still talking about bulky buying and everything, my tax shops and what. But what is going to happen to Mbare Musika? Let's look at Mbare Musika in terms of tax. Kuno push my volumes go. My card boxes, my apples, my bananas, they're coming out. How are they going to implement tax in that situation?
So that is a different, I think that's an area where probably the authorities have not yet looked at in terms of how they can also generate income from there, because the farmers, those traders at Mbare Musika, they get their products from the farmers. So I'm not sure what sort of taxes that farmers pay. I'm not sure about that in terms of, for example, I know produce some fruits and stuff like that. I'm not sure how they pay their taxes.
Okay.
Question. What tax at no
the bulk of them are there. For example, you have asked about sugar tax. South Africa can introduce. Maybe sometimes the way we implement those taxes, I think some study. As my example, go to South Africa. After year tax on sugar tax, they were given 2 years to make some adjustment, whatever adjustment that they were given. So it was, the way it was implemented was a little bit different from how we tried to implement it. But I think what I'm trying to think like Professor Mthuli Ncube. I think what he did was to say, okay, if I ask for, if we do normal ways of consultations, it's going to take us time at win. So I assume that and then people will come and negotiate. One want to negotiate, and at the end of the day we have won. Look at, for example, I don't think if Professor Mthuli Ncube has gone to the business sector, the manufacturing sector, and said, guys, I want you to start collecting 5% withholding tax from all unregistered informal businesses that you trade with, there was going to be an outcry to say, Saka, my systems that are in place, who is going to meet the cost of those systems? When we employer to write all that work, who is going to meet those costs? Now, I can go not. And then people are negotiate. Guys, all right, let's do this. And already he has got what he wanted. He now has a tax from all these big businesses, informal big businesses that were benefiting without paying tax.
Baba Hunter on our WhatsApp platform says that is the presser, I've got 2 issues. Is the presser now low? What is the position on the 30% withholding tax on farmers supplying into retail? Seems it contradicts the 5%.
Yeah, so 30% is there is, for example, for service providers, for example, if you provide service to a formal business, one of the tax clearance certificate can also see now about that 30% presumptive tax. So presumptive tax totally different. They serve different purposes. So they're different. And then is it now law? It's not yet. I haven't seen. Well, I'm not sure. I haven't seen a statutory instrument. I haven't seen any gazetting of the amendments to the Finance Act. I am not sure whether they have to go via Parliament for them to make those amendments. I haven't seen that. I'm not sure whether Parliament has started sitting, so I don't think it's still law. And even the wording in the statement that was released by the Minister of Finance, he said steps we will be taking. So they are not. I don't think it's law as yet.
So Kudzi, will it ever be enough one day when yatakabata goreri yakakwana or chaita surplus pamari dzatakabata?
Aimbova zvakadaro patisani because inenge chiko inenge wash and basket handiti dzimwe dzichiwashwa dzimwe dzapfekwa dzichiiswa imomo so because why, because you know, budget rine the income side and the spending side. So this is the income we are talking about. My revenue measures are it's for us to be able to collect revenue, but the spending part is an ongoing thing. Every day there are requirements that are needed to be paid by government itself. We still have our roads that are dilapidated. We still have our hospitals that are not adequately equipped. We still have schools that have got no books. All these things, they need to be, we need to collect revenue so that we can spend on those things. So there's tax, taxi, across the world, akuna nyika isinga collected tax.
Could you kindly clarify on the issue of safety boxes? How safe are they as per the recent Finance Act?
Yeah, I think there was my recollection of that information is now a bit hazy, so I won't be able to comment now. Okay. But I remember there was that issue where they were talking about taxing. There were some tax issues with regards money that is stored in those safety boxes. Okay, yeah, but I don't recall anymore what that was all about.
And it's a good strategy there by Professor Mthuli Ncube. It's like munhu akatizirwa, you negotiate nemkwasha. Atoenda darama utozonegotiate atoenda but
zvinenge zvachipa
easy to negotiate. Yeah. Okay, let's look at the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, the updates. What is the current position now?
Yeah, I think the ZSC is, I think I would say it's now back to trading sideways. It's still positive, but the gains are not as well pronounced as we were seeing earlier in the year. I think we've got front runners. We talk of companies like GB Holdings, Edgar's that have already done well. I think Edgar's is already more than 60% up since the beginning of the year, and so the ZSC has done well so far. But then you start to look at what has also been happening in with the exchange rate. I read a report that was done by Bloomberg this morning, which was saying the Zimbabwean dollar has already depreciated by 40% since the beginning of the year. So we are now saying, okay, any gain on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, which is less than, assuming that this 40%, because I haven't done the math myself, but this report was saying that the Zimbabwean dollar has lost by 40% since the beginning of the year. So assuming that it is correct, you're now looking at your stocks and say, okay, any stock that has not gained by more than 40%, even though if it has gained by 20%, 30%, in real terms, it hasn't gained. In real terms, we are looking at it in US dollar terms. Kuti dollar rangu randaka investor muna January tanga kwegore kunoka nditi. As long as that that in Zim dollar terms this now gained by 20%, dollar rangu ritori in a negative territory. But any stock that has already gained by more than 40%, like an Edgar's to gain by more than 60%. So even in US dollar terms, they've gained by close to 20%, which is quite huge. Kanonga investor $100 yako yatove $120, kana inga iri thousand yatove 1,200. It's a good gain for those investors.
Another question as well on our WhatsApp platform. Could you please clarify the issue of VAT registration and tax clearance? Is it a requirement for every business, even though you are selling goods that are exempted from VAT?
So there's a threshold where they say if your income, I think, if your revenues are less than 25,000, it was revised downwards. I think it used to be 40,000. Now it's 25,000. You are exempt from that. But I think you still need that tax clearance certificate. A tax clearance certificate, I think it's still needed. But for VAT, you are not required to register for VAT. But you need that tax clearance certificate because that's the only way we can know kuti zimwe rari kuzviziva, because someone can come and say I need business rangu harite revenue more than 25,000. Tinozviziva sei?
No.
Only Zimra can know, and for Zimra to know, there must be that tax clearance certificate in order to ensure munhu itukuziva nezvake, and then Zimra ndoinozoona mabhuku ako kuti zveshuwa zvawakaenda paukanohodha pepe uchitaura kuti nini I'm not in this bracket, zveshuwa ndo zvazviri in the bracket, kuti hauna kuita revenues are more than 25,000. Vakazoona wakaita more than vakutoti tax yedu iri kupi.
So Kudzi, you spoke about the report that you picked up from Bloomberg, saying that the Zimbabwean dollar has lost about 40% since the beginning of the year.
It's on the parallel market.
On the parallel market.
Yes.
Okay, so how are the listed companies performing now on the stock market?
Yeah, and like I said, we continue to see gains. Most of the ZSE listed companies, they've recorded gains, especially the blue chip companies. The blue chip companies are your big brands in terms of market cap as well. You're talking of your Deltas, your Econets. They've recorded positive gains. I've been talking about Edgar's as well as one of them. They've been doing well. But then you also look at companies that have been releasing results recently. You talk of I think I saw reports from Nampek, for example, which is one of the listed companies, talking about how they are doing in terms of actually their latest results, where they're saying sales volumes at Unyani Paper and Packaging. We all know Unyani Paper and Packaging. It's a packaging company, paper-based packaging, and they're saying their volumes grew by 13.4%, which is good. But then they also have Megapack. Megapack, I think it's also for packaging, but on the plastic side of business, and Megapack is saying that their volumes decreased by 2.5%. Then you also look at Conadon Metal Box. Vanoita packaging yezvinhu bit metal, vanoita mabottle caps that munoona pamabhodhoro emadrinks that you are in cans. They are saying their volumes grew by 4.7%. So I think it's a good mix for Nampek, which is one of the listed companies.
But Kudzi, effect that the Zimbabwean dollar has lost about 40%, right, from the beginning of the year. My companies that are listed on the stock market are rising. Saka zvoramba zvichidaroka, it looks like zvichinodonha uku zviri kuboostawo.
Kudzi watipandudzwa 40% kutanga kwegore, but ukapinda mushopu vari kuramba vakaisa rate ravo ipapo. Hakusi kuti dollar redu radevaluate here ne 40% yautaura iyoyo. Wapinda, but then pane vari kuroza ka.
That's what, yes, pane vari kuroza. That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying if your currency has lost by 40%, and you are still, for example, if you're selling your product at, let's say, 10,000 Zimbabwean dollars, and the currency has depreciated or lost value by 40%, and you continue to sell at 10,000, you are losing value.
So it means you need to raise your price.
You need to put up your prices if you are to keep up with that. If you are to keep up with that.
But are we allowed to do that? Are we allowed?
It's your business. It's your business.
Which become shop the rate exchange rate it's gazetted that exchange rate.
So the business, that's what I was saying. The business will be making announce my exchange losses. So what will some businesses do? And it Pavanono price some products in US dollar terms. Vano increase at the US dollar price. So that monupono badara in Zim dollars. Waku badara covering for that 40% value drop. However, my shops are kudaro manji, and kuma US dollar kwavakwiza kuya. The product is not too expensive in US dollars, and yet most Zimbabweans are now using my US dollars. Saka vanhu vari kuzotiza in these formal shops, vachienda kuma tax shops. Why are formal shops charging way more than the tax shops in US dollar terms? It's because they know kuti munhu achayozoswiper. The moment any big retailer say to product yangu yakuta $5, right? And munhu anoya oswiper. Saka uyu kuti akavhire malosses ake ekuswipirwa aya anoita over product yangu ye5 iri kuitwa $5 everywhere else akuita $8. But what has happened? I lose my customers. That's why we are back to kwatatangira this program today to say the shift we are seeing from customers moving from formal businesses to kuma tax shops is not because vanhu vari kunakidzwa nekutenga kuma tax shops tereke or ndoko avanosevwa zviripo, but it's because of the price. And why do we have that price favoring the tax shops? It's because of the exchange rate that is used by the formal businesses. A formal business will say, okay, the Zim dollar has devalued on the para market by 40%. So how do I cover my back? I increase the US dollar price. So that I can get my Zim dollar on my charge, so if I get the correct price of my product. But the US dollar price now is now ridiculous. And no one will come.
But at the same time, Kudzi, have you ever noticed this whole Kudzi? If you get into some big retail outlets, you find Kudzi, the price they will put on the Zimbabwean dollar is very prohibitive for you. To such a point that you will end up wanting to use the US dollar more instead. Yes. So my price avari kuti isira mazim dollar ase kuda kutoti dzinga ire kuti inini handisikuida, they can't even tell us directly kuti ini handisikuda ma US Zimbabwean dollars ako ndikuda US rako.
No, I think what they are simply doing is to say, okay, this product is $5. Instead of using the official exchange rate of whatever 6,400, they will use the para market exchange rate of 12,000. Saka our businesses are still kutotya ngoti inini ndiri kunzi use official exchange rate. Inini ndiri ngoenda nongonesa handisikuzoisa price ye US. Ndiri ngoisa iri ye Zim dollar chete.
You will watch the decision wega.
Rate randiri kushandisa pakuisa price ye Zim dollar. Nderechi ndere parallel market. Saka ndopanozona mamwe mafuta yati kuti mafuta ari kunzi 60,000 chirudzi andete or 600,000 chirudzi ari kushandisa the parallel market exchange rate. But ukada uzonotenga imomo mshop, that's why vanhu vasingazotenge mshop imomo nema US dollar because ukaconverta still uri kukwara mbora.
All right. Let's end it here for today. We'll continue more with Business Focus tomorrow, and some of the outlets are now doubling the USD price. Washikaba till for swipe. All right, we'll discuss more. Thank you so much, Kudzi, for Business Focus. Until tomorrow, it'll be at 7:35 a.m.
Thank you, Tinash.